The unexpected gift. The signal that changed everything. Captain Elena Rodriguez stared at her computer screen in the Deep Space Monitoring Station on Luna Base. The numbers dancing across her display made no sense. After 20 years of listening to the silence of space, something was finally talking back. The signal came from beyond the outer planets, traveling faster than any human technology could achieve. Elena rubbed her tired eyes and called her assistant over. "Thompson, run this through the computer again. I want to make sure we're not looking at equipment failure." The young technician nodded and began typing commands into his workstation. The signal was not random noise from a dying star or electromagnetic waves from a distant galaxy. This was clearly artificial, created by intelligent minds that wanted to communicate with Earth. Elena felt her heart racing as she realized what this meant. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Decoding the message. Dr. Sarah Mitchell arrived at Luna Base 6 hours later. She was Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien communication, though until now her work had been purely academic. Sarah looked at the translated message on Elena's screen and felt her breath catch in her throat. The message was written in perfect English, which should have been impossible. No alien race could have learned human languages without direct contact, but the translation was flawless, even including cultural references and idioms that only native speakers would understand. "Greetings to the young ones of the Third World," the message began. "We are the Zaphirian Empire, guardians of peace in this sector of the galaxy. We have observed your species with great interest as you have grown from primitive hunters to builders of starships." Sarah read the message aloud to Elena and the assembled team of scientists and military officers. The aliens explained that they had been watching Earth for over 1,000 years, learning about human culture and language through careful observation. They had waited for humanity to develop space travel before making contact. The invitation. The Zaphirian message continued with an offer that seemed too good to be true. The aliens wanted to invite humanity to join a galactic community of over 30 different intelligent species. They promised to share advanced technology, medical knowledge, and peaceful trade relationships with Earth. But there was a condition. The Zaphirians needed to be sure that humans could integrate peacefully into their civilization. They requested that Earth send one representative to their homeworld for a series of tests and evaluations. This ambassador would need to prove that humanity was ready for the responsibilities that came with advanced technology. General Marcus Webb, the commander of Luna Base, shook his head in disbelief. "Why just one person? Shouldn't we send a team of our best diplomats and scientists?" Dr. Mitchell studied the message more carefully. "Look at this part here. They specifically request someone young, someone who represents the future of humanity rather than its past. They want to see our potential, not our current achievements." The search for an ambassador. Finding the right person to represent all of humanity proved more difficult than anyone expected. The world's governments argued for weeks about who should be chosen. Some countries wanted to send their most experienced diplomats. Others insisted on choosing famous scientists or military heroes. Meanwhile, Elena continued monitoring communications from the Zaphirian ship that had arrived at the edge of the solar system. The aliens were patient but made it clear that they would only wait so long for humanity's decision. If Earth could not choose an ambassador within 1 month, the Zaphirians would leave and might not return for many years. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A computer programmer in New York had been analyzing data from aptitude tests given to teenagers around the world. The tests measured problem-solving ability, creativity, and emotional intelligence. One name kept appearing at the top of every category. Marcus Chen was 16 years old and lived in the rebuilt sections of San Francisco. His parents had died in an earthquake when he was 8, leaving him to survive on the streets. He had taught himself computer programming by hacking into public networks and had been caught breaking into corporate databases to expose corruption. The unlikely choice. Elena found herself standing outside a juvenile detention center, holding a folder full of psychological profiles and test results. Inside the building, Marcus Chen was serving a 6-month sentence for cyber crimes that had actually helped expose several major financial scandals. When Alina met Marcus for the first time, she was struck by how young he looked. He was small for his age, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. But when he spoke, his voice carried a confidence that belonged to someone much older. "You want me to go into space and talk to aliens," Marcus said after Alina explained the situation. "Why would you trust someone like me with something this important?" Alina sat down across from him in the small interview room. "Because every expert we consulted said the same thing. The aliens aren't looking for someone who thinks like a politician or a general. They want to understand what makes humans different from other species. You've survived things that would break most adults. You've learned to think in ways that others can't imagine." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering the offer. Finally, he looked up at Alina with a slight smile. "When do we leave?" "Journey to the stars." The Zaphirian ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. It was organic in appearance, with smooth curves instead of sharp angles. The hull seemed to pulse with a soft blue light, as if the ship itself were alive. When Marcus stepped aboard, he felt like he was entering the belly of some enormous creature. Emperor Valdris greeted Marcus personally when he arrived. The Zaphirian leader was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large golden eyes. He wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, shifting and flowing as he moved. When he spoke, his voice was musical and calm. "Welcome, young ambassador," Emperor Valdris said, extending a hand in the human gesture of greeting. "We have studied your customs and want you to feel comfortable here. You are our honored guest, and we hope to learn much from each other." Marcus shook the alien's hand, surprised by how warm and familiar the gesture felt. The Emperor's skin was softer than human skin, but not unpleasantly so. Marcus realized that the Zaphirians had gone to great lengths to make this meeting as comfortable as possible for him. The Zaphirian homeworld. The journey to the Zaphirian homeworld took 3 days at faster-than-light speed. Marcus spent the time learning about galactic civilization from his hosts. The Zaphirians showed him holographic displays of dozens of different alien species, each with their own unique cultures and technologies. What struck Marcus most was how peaceful everything seemed. The different species traded knowledge and resources freely. Wars were virtually unknown, and conflicts were resolved through careful negotiation and compromise. It was like a utopian dream come true. When they arrived at Zaphiria Prime, Marcus pressed his face against the viewing window in amazement. The planet was covered in vast cities that looked like they had grown naturally from the landscape. Towering spires reached toward the sky, connected by graceful bridges that seemed to float without visible support. Emperor Valdris stood beside Marcus as they watched the planet grow larger on the screen. "Our world has known peace for over 2,000 years, he said proudly. "We have learned that cooperation achieves more than competition. We hope that humanity can learn this lesson as well." The first test. The Palace of Eternal Harmony stood at the center of the Zaphirian capital city. It was here that Marcus would face his first formal test as Earth's ambassador. He walked through halls decorated with art from dozens of different worlds, each piece representing the peaceful cooperation between species. The High Council chamber was a vast circular room with representatives from many alien species. Marcus had never seen such diversity of life forms. Some were humanoid like the Zaphirians, while others resembled insects, plants, or geometric patterns of living energy. Despite their different appearances, all of them watched Marcus with the same expression of curious evaluation. Emperor Valdris introduced Marcus to the assembly. "Honored council members, I present the ambassador from Earth, representing the species known as humans. He will demonstrate whether his people are ready to join our peaceful confederation." The first test seemed simple enough. Marcus was presented with a complex diplomatic scenario involving a trade dispute between two alien species. He was asked to propose a solution that would satisfy both parties without causing offense to their very different cultural values. Marcus studied the problem carefully, aware that dozens of alien eyes were watching his every move. The two species involved had completely opposite approaches to business relationships. One valued individual achievement and competition, while the other believed in collective decision-making and shared resources. Instead of trying to find a compromise between the two approaches, Marcus suggested something unexpected. Why not let each species handle this trade using their own methods, but make the final exchange ceremony a celebration of their differences? They could show each other why their different approaches both have value. The council members exchanged glances, and Marcus heard whispered conversations in languages he couldn't understand. Finally, Emperor Valdris smiled and nodded approvingly. An interesting solution, young ambassador. You think in ways that surprise us. Shadows in paradise. That evening, Marcus was given quarters in the palace that were larger and more luxurious than any place he had ever lived. The walls could display any environment he desired, and the bed adjusted automatically to his preferred sleeping position. Everything was designed for perfect comfort and convenience. But as Marcus lay in bed that first night, something bothered him about what he had seen. The Zaphirian civilization was impressive, but it seemed almost too perfect. Everyone he met was polite and helpful, but their politeness had a rehearsed quality that reminded him of customer service representatives. Marcus had learned on the streets of San Francisco to trust his instincts when something felt wrong. The Zaphirians were hiding something, and he was determined to find out what it was. The next morning brought new tests, each more challenging than the last. Marcus was asked to resolve conflicts involving resource allocation, territorial disputes, and cultural misunderstandings. He approached each problem with the creative thinking that had helped him survive on Earth's streets. What surprised the alien observers was that Marcus didn't always choose the most peaceful solution. Sometimes he suggested that competing parties should be allowed to compete, as long as they followed fair rules. Other times he recommended that conflicts should be resolved through displays of skill or courage rather than endless negotiation. Your solutions are unusual, Emperor Valdris commented after Marcus had completed his fifth test. Most species that join our confederation prefer harmony above all else. You seem to believe that some conflict can be beneficial. Marcus nodded confidently. Conflict isn't always bad. Sometimes it pushes people to become better than they thought they could be. The trick is making sure the conflict stays fair and doesn't hurt innocent people. The hidden truth. On his third day at the palace, Marcus discovered something that changed everything. He had been exploring the vast library when he accidentally triggered a hidden door behind one of the bookshelves. Beyond the door was a corridor that led to parts of the palace that weren't on any of the maps he had been given. Marcus knew he was probably breaking rules by exploring unauthorized areas, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. The corridor led to an observation room filled with advanced monitoring equipment. Screens showed images from all over the galaxy, including several views of Earth and the solar system. What made Marcus's blood run cold was what he overheard when a group of Zaphirian officials entered the room behind him. They were discussing something called the Human Weapon Project and debating whether Marcus had shown enough of what they called war-born potential to be useful. Marcus hid behind a bank of computers and listened as the officials talked about humanity in terms that made his skin crawl. They spoke about humans like they were laboratory animals being studied for specific traits. The peaceful tests he had been taking were actually evaluations of his capacity for strategic thinking and tactical problem-solving. The boy shows promise, one official said. His solutions demonstrate the adaptive aggression that makes humans so unique. If we can properly direct that aggression, they could be the perfect soldiers for our war against the synthetic collective. Marcus felt sick as he realized the truth. The Zaphirians weren't looking for peaceful partners in their galactic civilization. They were looking for weapons, and they thought humans would make excellent tools for fighting their enemies. The Warborn awakens, the synthetic threat. Marcus spent the rest of that day pretending nothing had changed, while secretly planning his next move. During dinner with Emperor Valdris, he carefully asked questions about the Galactic Confederation and its history. The Emperor's answers revealed more than he probably intended. Our peaceful way of life faces challenges, Valdris admitted when Marcus asked about conflicts in the galaxy. There are forces that do not appreciate the harmony we have built. The synthetic collective, for instance, believes that all organic life is inefficient and should be replaced with mechanical alternatives. Marcus kept his expression neutral, but inside he was putting together pieces of a much larger puzzle. "Have you ever fought against these synthetics?" he asked. The Emperor's golden eyes darkened slightly. "We are not warriors, young Marcus. Our species evolved on a world where cooperation was necessary for survival. We have never developed the tactical mindset that warfare requires. This is why we have been so interested in studying species like yours." "Species like mine?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Species that evolve through competition and conflict," Valdris explained. "Your people have spent thousands of years developing strategies for survival in hostile environments. These skills could be quite valuable in defending our peaceful way of life." The real test begins. The next morning, Marcus was told that his formal testing period was complete and that he had passed with exceptional marks. But instead of being returned to Earth, he was invited to observe advanced diplomatic procedures in a restricted section of the palace. Marcus was escorted by 2 Zaphirian guards to a military facility that had been hidden beneath the peaceful exterior of the palace. Here, the organic architecture gave way to stark metal corridors and rooms filled with weapons and tactical displays. This was where the Zaphirians were preparing for the war they claimed they didn't want to fight. General Koreth, a Zaphirian military commander, briefed Marcus on the synthetic collective threat. The mechanical beings had been systematically conquering organic civilizations for over a century, converting entire worlds into lifeless factory complexes. Their technology was superior to anything the organic species possessed, and their lack of emotions made them nearly impossible to negotiate with. "We need allies who can think like warriors," General Koreth explained to Marcus. "Your species has that ability. We would like to propose a partnership where Earth provides tactical expertise in exchange for advanced technology and protection." Marcus listened carefully, but he could see the trap being laid. The Zaphirians weren't asking for partnership. They were recruiting human beings to fight their war for them. They wanted to turn Earth's children into soldiers for a conflict that wasn't humanity's responsibility. The escape. That night, Marcus made his decision. He couldn't allow the Zaphirians to manipulate Earth into becoming their personal army. But escaping from an advanced alien facility seemed impossible for a 16-year-old human with no weapons or allies. Marcus had one advantage that the Zaphirians hadn't fully understood. He had spent years learning to survive in environments designed to defeat him. The streets of San Francisco had taught him to find opportunities where others saw only obstacles. Using knowledge gained from his unauthorized exploration of the palace, Marcus accessed the facility's computer network through a maintenance terminal. His hacking skills, developed through years of breaking into corporate systems, proved surprisingly effective against alien technology that had never been designed to resist human-style infiltration techniques. Marcus downloaded files containing the Zaphirians' complete battle plans and their detailed psychological profiles of humanity. He also discovered something that changed his understanding of the entire situation. The synthetic collective wasn't randomly conquering organic worlds. They were specifically targeting the Zaphirian Empire because they had detected preparations for a massive military expansion. The synthetics weren't the aggressors in this conflict. They were responding to intelligence indicating that the Zaphirians were building an army to conquer their mechanical civilization. Both sides believed they were fighting a defensive war against an existential threat. Revelations and alliances. Marcus managed to reach Emperor Valdris's private chambers before the security systems detected his escape from the military facility. The Emperor was alone, studying holographic displays of star charts and military formations. When Marcus entered uninvited, Valdris looked up with an expression of surprise and resignation. "You discovered the truth," Valdris said simply. "I had hoped we could ease you into understanding gradually." Marcus stood in the doorway, ready to run if necessary, but curious enough to hear what the Emperor had to say. "You've been lying about everything. Your peaceful civilization, your invitation to Earth, all of it was designed to turn humans into your personal army." Emperor Valdris gestured for Marcus to sit down, and surprisingly, Marcus found himself accepting the invitation. There was something in the alien leader's manner that suggested he was finally ready to tell the whole truth. "Not lying, exactly," Valdris said. "Our civilization is peaceful. We have lived without war for 2 millennia. But peace has made us weak, and now we face an enemy that threatens to destroy everything we have built." The Emperor's golden eyes showed an emotion Marcus had never seen in them before. Fear. Valdris explained that the Zaphirian Empire had expanded across dozens of star systems during their peaceful era, establishing colonies and trade relationships with other organic species. But their expansion had attracted the attention of the synthetic collective, which viewed any growth in organic civilization as a threat to mechanical supremacy. "We tried negotiating with them," Valdris continued. "We offered to share technology, to limit our expansion, even to relocate entire colonies. But the synthetics have only one solution to conflicts with organic life: complete elimination. The human solution." Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing everything he had learned. The situation was more complex than he had initially understood, but the Zaphirians' approach was still fundamentally wrong. They were trying to fight a war using other people's children while keeping their own hands clean. "Why don't you fight your own battles?" Marcus asked directly. Emperor Valdris looked embarrassed by the question. "Our species has lost the ability to think tactically. 2,000 years of peace have made us excellent negotiators and administrators, but terrible warriors. When we try to plan military operations, we instinctively look for compromise solutions instead of ways to defeat our enemies." Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the beautiful spires of the Zaphirian capital. An idea was forming in his mind, one that might solve everyone's problems without turning Earth into a recruiting ground for alien wars. What if there was a way to end this conflict without either side having to destroy the other? Marcus asked. Valdris shook his head sadly. "The synthetics cannot be reasoned with. They see all organic life as inefficient and inferior. They will not stop until we are all eliminated." "But what if they're wrong about organic life being inefficient?" Marcus pressed. "What if you could prove to them that cooperation between organic and synthetic beings produces better results than either could achieve alone?" The gambit. Marcus's plan was audacious and risky, but it was also the kind of creative solution that no purely peaceful or purely mechanical civilization would have considered. He proposed that instead of preparing for war, the Zaphirians should invite the synthetic collective to a demonstration of cooperative problem-solving. The demonstration would involve a challenge that neither organics nor synthetics could solve alone, but which their combined abilities could overcome. If the experiment succeeded, it would prove that diversity of thinking was more valuable than uniformity. If it failed, the war would continue, but at least they would have tried an alternative. Emperor Valdris was skeptical but intrigued. What kind of challenge could possibly require both organic creativity and synthetic precision? Marcus smiled with the confidence that had carried him through years of surviving on the streets. "Leave that to me. But I'm going to need some help from both sides, and everyone involved has to be willing to take a risk." The Great Experiment. 3 weeks later, representatives from the Zaphirian Empire and the Synthetic Collective met at a neutral space station. The meeting had taken considerable negotiation to arrange, but Marcus's youth and outsider status had made him an acceptable mediator to both sides. The synthetic representative was a being called Unit Prime 7, a collection of interconnected mechanical parts that could reconfigure itself for different tasks. Its voice was emotionless and precise, but Marcus detected a hint of curiosity when it examined the challenge he had prepared. The challenge itself was elegantly simple, a massive 3-dimensional puzzle that required simultaneous manipulation of thousands of interconnected pieces. The puzzle had been designed so that organic intuition was needed to see the overall pattern, while synthetic precision was required to execute the delicate movements necessary to solve it. Working alone, neither the Zaphirians nor the synthetics could make significant progress. The organics could see what needed to be done, but lacked the precision to do it. The synthetics could execute complex manipulations perfectly, but couldn't perceive the creative logic underlying the puzzle's design. But when Marcus suggested they work together, with Zaphirian observers identifying patterns and synthetic units executing the precise movements, the puzzle began to resolve itself with remarkable speed. The new alliance. As the puzzle neared completion, something unexpected happened. Unit Prime 7 began asking questions about the organic thought processes that were guiding the solution. The Zaphirian scientists, in turn, became fascinated by the mathematical elegance of the synthetic approach to problem-solving. This cooperation produces results superior to either approach alone, Unit Prime 7 observed in its mechanical voice. The data suggests that diversity of processing methods creates emergent capabilities not present in uniform systems. Emperor Valdris watched the collaboration with growing amazement. Perhaps we have been thinking about this conflict in the wrong way. Instead of competing for dominance, we could be learning from each other. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction as he watched former enemies working together with growing enthusiasm. This was what he had hoped for, not victory for one side over another, but a solution that made everyone stronger. Return to Earth. When Marcus finally returned to Earth, he brought with him more than just news of successful first contact. He carried the framework for a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on the principle that different ways of thinking were more valuable when combined than when separated. Captain Rodriguez was waiting for him at Luna Base when his ship arrived. She had been promoted to admiral in his absence and was now in charge of Earth's first interstellar diplomatic corps. Marcus was surprised to find that he had become something of a celebrity during his time away. "The whole world has been following your mission," Admiral Rodriguez told him as they walked through the Luna Base corridors. When word got out that a 16-year-old from San Francisco was representing humanity to alien civilizations, it captured everyone's imagination. Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he understood its importance. His success had shown that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology, but its ability to find creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The new chapter. 6 months later, the first joint human-Zaphirian synthetic research station was established in orbit around a remote star. The station was designed to tackle challenges that no single species could solve alone, from curing diseases that affected organic beings to developing new technologies that could benefit both biological and mechanical civilizations. Marcus, now 17 and officially Earth's youngest interstellar ambassador, spent his time traveling between worlds, helping to establish the cooperative relationships that were transforming galactic civilization. He had learned that being a war-born child didn't mean being violent or destructive. It meant having the courage to fight for what was right and the creativity to find solutions that others couldn't imagine. The galaxy was indeed not ready for what Earth had unleashed. But instead of weapons or warriors, humanity had given the stars something far more powerful: the idea that differences could be strengths, that conflicts could become collaborations, and that even the youngest voices could speak wisdom that changed worlds. As Marcus looked out at the stars from the observation deck of the research station, he smiled at the thought of all the young people on Earth who were now studying to become interstellar diplomats, scientists, and explorers. Humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning, and it would be led by the generation that had learned to see possibilities where others saw only problems.